Welcome back to Formula for Average. The Canadian Grand Prix is done and the weekend is over, so let's reflect on some things. And man, it really was a really captivating weekend in my opinion for many different reasons. And of course, the number one reason was the Mercedes and the fights, multiple fights that Russell and Antonelli had throughout the weekend. And of course, like we can tell that on track action that happened in sprint race and in the main race, but also off those main races, if we talk about qualifying, then the fight was on, and it was really tight. And we can take a look at main qualifying and the main qualifying results. I'm going to be jumping a little bit through this review between the races and the sprint race and everything, because I want to make this one episode and one review out of the whole weekend, but there are a couple of highlights between those different sessions which I want to touch. And as I said, the first thing that I would like to take a look is the qualifying results, and this is for the main race. And as you can see, it's so close. It's 68 thousandths of a second between George and Kimi in the main qualifying. And in that sense, it was really spectacular to see, because actually throughout the qualifying session, it seemed that George does not have an answer. He was, let's say, on the back foot, and then all of a sudden, the last qualifying lap, it was just spot on, and he managed to take the pole position. Of course, we already know how the race ended for George, so wasn't that fortunate, but the pace was there. And now coming back also to the sprint race, it was electrifying, let's say, to watch. And the sprint race, actually, I think it represents kind of the whole weekend, because even though George was kind of the leading driver, and we all knew that coming into this weekend, George had to show that he's the leading driver and the leading competitor, just because he needed to prove that he's he's still a championship contender and everything. And given that he's very good in the past in this track in Canada, then he needed to show that, and he did. However, I must say that in the sprint race, when Antonelli was chasing him, it seemed that on a pure pace, Antonelli was faster, but the difference was so small that George was able to keep him behind. And that one, let's say, half attempt, which Antonelli tried and didn't succeed, I think if he would have gotten him, then he would have driven away. And I think this is the defining thing between those two at the moment, that Antonelli seems to be the ultimately faster driver. He's faster driver even in the tracks where George, on the paper or from the past experience, he should be better, but Antonelli shows that he's just a quicker driver in the race stint. And they are very, let's say, closely paced, but if Antonelli gets in the free air, then he is quicker. And you could see that, well, you couldn't see it, but that was my, let's say, feeling, that if in the sprint race Antonelli would have taken George, then there wouldn't be any chance for George to win that race. But Antonelli made a mistake. Well, you can argue about the first one, but then in the further actions and the further overtakes which he tried, he made mistakes and yeah, ultimately lost out also to Lando, which is fair, and that's it. Basically, there was nothing. They were very equally paced, I think, but in the free air, I think Kimi had a better chance and better pace. And in the sprint, in the main race, I think we could also see that. And up until the moment when obviously George's car failed, and it's a huge bummer, and I can understand his frustration because basically he's now trailing a lot. I think it's 43 points. We will take a look at the results and the totals later, but obviously his frustration is great. As it was said that he was out due to a power unit issue on lap 31. I'm not sure what exactly power unit issue, but also in the race, for the majority of the race, while up until lap 31, Antonelli and Russell, they were fighting between themselves, and it seemed that Antonelli was pushing all the time. He was pushing, he was catching, he was trying to attack, and he did it actually multiple times. And then, of course, yes, also he made some mistakes, and then George took back his first place and so on. So it wasn't a faultless, let's say, drive for either of them. But it seems that when they were fighting, when they were, let's say, pushing each other, then Kimi was pushing more than George, and Kimi was, let's say, he was again the same as in the sprint. I think in the main race also Kimi was slightly faster, but of course they have equally, let's say, fast and paced cars. So in that sense, he couldn't do as much, especially in the straight line. It seems that they are very equally paced. But as soon as he was starting to push, George was in the defense mode, and Antonelli, you can argue, he took the lead and then he made a mistake. But I mean, I think after George retired, there was no mistake, or at least no visible mistake from Antonelli, because of course the pressure was off. The closest was then Verstappen. He was like whatever it was, 7-9 seconds away. So Antonelli was safe, and he, well, of course he was still pushing, because actually he set the fastest lap at the last lap of the race, which is kind of a little bit crazy. But anyways, he didn't have anybody like pushing him, so he was on his own, and you can see when he is on his own, when he is in the zone, and there is no, let's say, high stakes pressure fight, then he can just drive perfectly almost. So it was fascinating to see. So I think huge bummer for Russell, but well deserved for Antonelli, because I think overall Antonelli was the faster man out of those two, if we look at the weekend altogether. That's my sort of conclusion, or that's how I feel that's how it was. So what else? Well, from the race, McLaren. Let's talk McLaren. And as good as they looked before the main race, I genuinely thought that they could to take the fight to win, or at least fight for the podiums. And I think they would have fought for the podiums unless their mistake with the tires which they started the race. And honestly, I was looking at the race, and they were going into the warm-up lap, and the track didn't look damp. You could see those spots, like there were some damp spots, but they were off the track, like in some runoff areas. And then the rest of the track, it looked dry. And when I saw that McLaren is starting on the what is it called, medium wet tire, intermediate tire, then I thought that why I didn't understand. And yes, for the first 2 laps, was it, they were faster off the line, and Lando took the lead, while those, let's say, rest of the field, they were warming up their tires, and they have had, let's say, those 2-lap advantage, but it was clear that they will, let's say, wear off, and there will not be advantage after a couple of laps. And I don't understand why they chose to do this. What was the strategy call there? They blew it, basically, in my opinion. This was on purely team's error, and I don't know what were they thinking. And of course, then later, it was just a bummer race for McLaren. Obviously, Lando had a gearbox issue on lap 40, I believe. So he retired there, and then Piastri, the mistake he made with, I understand that he's frustrated and he wants to get some places back and everything, but that does not give you the right to basically crash into Albon and take him out of the race. And I understand that Williams is a slower car and everything, and obviously you will get him eventually, but I mean, exactly. So if you will get him eventually, then why risk it and just take him out completely? Like, I didn't understand that. Of course, a mistake, a very bad mistake from Piastri, in my opinion. And what else can I say about the McLaren? Team messed it up, then the drivers tried to sort of fight it back, and then gearbox issue and driver error, and that's it. That's the end of the weekend for McLaren. So overall, very bad weekend for McLaren. That's all I can say. Ferrari was interesting because it's very different results from both drivers. Hamilton was very happy and obviously got P2 and everything, and drive actually a very good race, and I don't know what it was, but on the soft tire and full tank, he was slower than Verstappen. And then once he had, let's say, lighter car, and he had the medium tire at that moment, and the tire had worn off a little bit, Verstappen was suffering more from this, and Hamilton sort of had better tires. Then he came back ultimately and overtook Verstappen, and it was magnificent overtaken. What can I say? But around the outside and perfect on the brakes and everything, and he executed it great, and it was fun to watch. But overall, talking about the weekend in general, then Charles was very unhappy with everything. He said it even in interviews that nothing is going his way, and he even called it the worst weekend in his F1 career. And what is it, the 7th year or 8th year or whatever in Formula One, then you can imagine like how frustrated Leclerc was, just because saying that this is his worst weekend ever. So eventually, yes, he finished P4. You look at the result, and it's like in the main race, and like you can say, what are you talking about? What the worst weekend? But he was never happy, and and not just that, he was like half a minute behind Hamilton, so his teammate. So obviously he was frustrated, and he made a mistake also during the race. And yes, it's a bad weekend for Charles. But on the bright side, they seem to have a pretty decent car now. Yes, they cannot fight yet with Mercedes, but they are in a P2, P3 fight, I believe. And maybe in a good day, also Red Bull can join the party. But overall, I think Ferrari is in a good place to fight for the podiums, and that's great to see. And the next track is obviously coming, Monaco, and Ferrari should be very good and very quick there. But yeah, they are definitely better than they were, and they are improving. So that's good to see, and hopefully that they could also at some point fight for the wins. Although at the moment looks like Mercedes is in the league on their own. But anyways, good to see Hamilton back on the podium. His best ever result with Ferrari, P2. So that's reassuring to see. What else? Next, Red Bull. And Red Bull is the fourth team that I want to mention as a team, because they are in the mix. Of course, also their best result overall this year. First podium for Verstappen, or for Red Bull team in general this year. So that's also very reassuring to see. Of course, we can argue that yes, McLaren was out of the picture, and Russell was out of the picture. With them being in the picture, probably Lewis would not have been on the podium, and Verstappen would not have been on the podium. But it's racing; these things happen. And yeah, Verstappen was there, and good race from him, compared to how unhappy he was in the previous sessions, in the sprint race, in the qualifying, and etc. That he was relatively happy with the car and everything in the main race. So that's good to see, and that's another way for let's say reassuring for the team that he might still be on the grid for 2027, because we know that there has been these rumors that he might leave because he's not happy with the rules, he's not happy with the team and everything, more with the rules than the team. But at the moment he seemed relatively happy, I would say, and yeah, of course, podium, that's always good to see, and that's always reassuring that he could be very good, and yeah, it's good to see that he's still in the fight. Hadjar also had a very good overall result, although his race was sloppy, in my opinion. The move he did with Leclerc, for which he got also the penalty, and then he got another stop and go penalty. I didn't understand for what was that, to be honest, during the race. I need to read it. I haven't read it yet, but overall, bad race from him. Of course, he didn't lose much because they were so far ahead of the next team, which is Alpine. Then he could have taken a couple of more penalties and still be in the P5. But yeah, overall, not a great, in my opinion, not a great weekend for Hadjar, even though the result eventually is pretty good. Alpine, and this is the last team. I said that before, but I say it again. Alpine, great effort. I think I might be mistaken, but I think it's the best result for them this year, P6 and P8 respectively. So in that sense, very good and very respectable weekend. In the sprint race, where they were in the sprint race, yeah, it was not great for them. Well, Colapinto was P9, Gasly was P20. So, but overall, for main race, P6 and P8, I think a very, very respectable race for them, and the result for them. So that's good to see. That's good to see. So looking at the race results, let's take a look at the race results. So obviously, I already mentioned a couple of first places. As I said, P8, Gasly, solid race for Sainz. We didn't see much from him, or like we didn't see much actually, anything from P10 to P whatever, P16. We had 16 cars finishing, because all the attention was to first half of the race. Attention was for the Antonelli versus Russell, and then second half of the race, the attention was to Hamilton versus Verstappen, which is justified, of course. But because of that, we didn't see much what actually happened during the rest of the race with the rest of the drivers. But looking at the results, 2 points for Sainz, good, I guess, good result for Williams, although this is not where they want to be, but eventually good. Oliver Behrman P10, so also got 1 point. To be honest, Haas is looking not great at the moment. They are falling behind in the order, in my opinion. And they qualified. Where did they qualify? I think it was also not great. Yeah, well, 16th and 17th for the main race, so not great even. But with all the virtual safety, I don't know what was happening with those virtual safety cars. They were popping up like mushrooms after the rain. But anyways, great recovery drive from Behrman in that sense, and then 1 point in the bag. So that's good to see. And then, the rest of the field, Piastri, which had disastrous race and penalty and everything. And then Hülkenberg, Bortoleto. It's a hard luck for Audi, in my opinion, because they are right there somewhere, but they cannot get into the points, whatever happens. And today we had multiple DNFs above their sort of grade, and they moved up the order, still cannot get points. Anyways, it is what it is. Then Ocon, Stroll, Bottas, and pretty much, well, Bottas is like, and the fascinating thing out of this results, as you see, is that first 4 places is on the same lap. and then the rest are 1 or more laps behind, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. And yes, the track is quite short. Was it in the race pace? It was like 1:15, 1:16, something like that. But still, after P4, everybody has been lapped. So that's kind of amazing to see. And if we look at the overall, I think the first 4 teams, meaning Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull, they are the top 4 teams. And then the rest. And of course, like Aston Martin and Cadillac, they are still the slowest teams and struggling to even finish the race. And speaking about finishing the race, I don't understand what happened with Perez. It was just, did he hit something before? Because he was driving into the pit lane and his suspension just broke. Was he pitting because there was a problem, or was it just under the braking he broke the suspension? I don't know yet. Need to read some more reports or whatever, but if his suspension broke just because he was braking, then this is a disaster for Cadillac, and they need to figure out what happened there, because it looked weird. I hope that he hit something before, in the sense that this is not just the weakness of the car, but it's just what happened. Anyways, so in that sense, no surprise there. Albon, I'm really sorry for the guy. He had also, like, let's say, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of luck, but this weekend was just unlucky for Albon. He hit the the poor groundhog, and then missed the sprint, and then also the race he got taken out by Piastri again. So yeah, just overall one issue after another, let's put it that way. So yeah, those are the race results, and in my opinion, well deserved for the top 4 teams, and the rest, yeah, Piastri is there where he shouldn't have been, but team error, Piastri error, everything combined, and he was 0 points in the race for McLaren. Looking at the Drivers' Championship, so this was a huge boost and a huge blow for huge boost for the Antonelli, huge blow for the Russell. And as you see, 43 points now, dividing those two, which is a huge gap if you think about it. So Russell, we need to have like just some luck and some magical drives in order to be able to fight for this. And yeah, well, they need to figure out if I mean the Russell side of the garage, they need to figure out how to beat Antonelli, because at the moment Antonelli is great, and he has now had 4 wins in a row, and as I read somewhere, this is the most that any driver in the start of the season have been able to do, and yeah, it's just great to see, to be honest, and if this continues, Russell will have a hard time to do that. And I don't know, there's still a lot of races ahead of us, but still, it's at the moment it's going Antonelli's way 100%. So yeah, and then Leclerc, Hamilton still there, P3, P4, but yeah, Hamilton is very close. So as you see, the couple of points there, and Piastri and Norris respectively there, and Verstappen is climbing up and now gaining a lot of points this weekend, and he has closed the gap to Piastri now, only 5 points. So yeah, interesting to see, a lot of fights still to happen. So I think in that sense it will be very interesting championship ahead of us. Even if Mercedes can run away, which they are doing at the moment, still the fight between Antonelli and Russell is gold. So I'm looking forward for the next races to see how that plays out. And looking at the Constructors Championship, of course, then Mercedes is leading, but let's say it's not that big of a lead as it looks on the track, but because purely, of course, like Russell DNF, so they lost ultimately 18 points this weekend, but yeah, 72 points back is Ferrari, and then 41 for McLaren, so 72 points. Yes, it's a huge or big difference, not huge difference, a big difference, but one unlucky weekend in Monaco, for example, and that gap can be cut in half. So anything can happen. But you can clearly see the first let's say 4 teams, especially for 3 teams now, they will battle it out, and my money still is on the Mercedes, but. Yeah, we still have a long season ahead of us, so it will be interesting to see how this plays out. And it seems to be that it will be a very interesting season, despite that Mercedes is the leading team at the moment. I think there are inner team battles and other battles which will make this season a very interesting. So at the moment, that's it. No, that's not it. There is one more thing that I want to show you. And that one thing is, I wanted to take a look at the telemetry and compare the difference between 25 and 26. Both of these laps are from Russell, qualifying laps. They're his pole sitting laps. And why I wanted to take a look at this is because I was interested about our famous super clipping for this weekend, or actually for this year, and the rule changes which they did, and we were looking at the Miami and it was looking better, but then I heard the engine noise through the qualifying session with one of the onboards, and I was immediately, and it was the straight after the hairpin, so it's this 11, 12, 13, whatever, between the turn 13 chicane. And I was listening to the car, and you could hear the super clipping, and I was thinking that, oh yeah, still there. And then I was thinking, okay, let's take a look at the telemetry and let's see how bad it is actually. And so, as I said, here I have white line is Russell's qualifying lap in 2025, and the blue, or this whatever cyan color, is this year's qualifying lap. So you can see that overall, especially here, so this is what I mentioned already before. So this is the straight between the 12 and 13. So this straight. So you can see that on the 2026, they reached the top speed somewhere in the middle of this big straight. And then, so it's 332 kilometers per hour. And then it starts to drop before, as you see, still full throttle, until the moment they hit the brakes. It's dropping, it drops until, for 312, so 332 and 310 or something like that before they hit the brakes. So that's 20 kilometers per hour, which they lose during the super clipping phase. So it's still there, it's evident. It's less evident as we look at here in these smaller straights. It's still there because there's, let's say, less straights. There are these chicanes, so they need to start braking sooner and so on. So it's not so evident here, and as you see, it's flat out here, and then it trails a little bit. The same here, flat out maximum speed, and then it trails out a little bit. But here in the big straight, it's still there. It's still pretty obvious. And if we compare, you see from the 2025, it's here also up, gaining, and then slam on the brakes, and then it goes down. The same here, also gaining speed and slam on the brakes. So yeah, the super clipping is not gone. It's still there. It's maybe less intrusive, but it's still there. And until they manage to figure out the battery and everything, this will still be evident, and I think there's no way around it. So yeah, that was the last thing that I wanted to show you. So now that's it for now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. And I think this was actually a great weekend, great fights and great battles on the track. I was excited, and I am still excited for the season, and it was a great weekend. And yeah, it was great entertainment and fun to watch. So thank you very much. Stay safe, and see you after 2 weeks after Monaco. So thank you, and bye-bye.